Greetings, listener. You have found Dark and Disturbed Tales. I am Steve Taylor. Ah, yes, the holiday season, where we all come together to share love of the family and the joy of being alive. Now that we've made it through the holidays and crept into a new year, it's time to party. In tonight's Twisted Tale, we put on dancing shoes and two-step our way right over the edge. Tonight, we join a man whose company throws two parties, one for Christmas and another for New Year's. Both are by invitation only and are widely considered top tier. I'm talking about celebrity guests in exotic locations with food catered by some of the best chefs in the world. On top of all that, every guest always leaves with a gift bag that's worth at least $1,000. Sounds fun, right? But what happens when things turn deadly? So without further ado, I present to you the party to end all parties. Raise your glasses and toast to the last bash.
Every year, the company I work for throws two parties, one for Christmas and another for New Year's. Both are by invitation only and are widely considered top tier. I'm talking about famous people in exotic locations, with food catered by some of the best chefs in the world. On top of all that, every guest always leaves with a gift bag that's worth at least $1,000. From what I was told, this year was going to be the biggest event in company history. Whatever they had planned, it was kept a secret until the invitations went out. As the date got closer, the buzz around the building had everyone coming up with theories. Jim from the 3rd floor thought they were taking us to Hawaii. Pam, on the 6th floor, thought it had something to do with New York. And Kevin, from the 11th floor, said Atlantic City. In the end, no one knew anything until that green envelope found its way to their desks. It was a week before Christmas, and I was on my way back to my office from the break room when I saw Clyde Foster. With a huge smile on his face, he threw his office door open and stepped out, holding his invitation up for everyone to see. It was dark green with gold lettering on the front that read Friday. Spotting me coming down the hall, he pointed in my direction and excitedly shouted,
"Alan, it's party time, my guy. Break out the bottles and the baby oil. Let's get weird."
Laughing and taking a sip of my coffee, I shook my head. "Fuck off, Foster. I'm still on probation from the last time."
Ah, come on. It wasn't my fault. Plus, I paid your bail.
Of course you did. You're the reason I got arrested.
Technically, you got yourself arrested. It's not my fault you're slow.
I'm not slow. I was drunk, and it was your idea.
That may be, but you're gonna let the past be the past. You know, trust me, you're not gonna want to miss this one. I've got something special planned.
Yeah, okay. So what does the invite say? Smiling and clearing his throat, Clyde opened the envelope, then frowned.
It's a key card with the time and address printed on it. 3121 Potter, 10:30 p.m. That's different. They usually make a production out of the whole thing. It's kind of a letdown. Oh, well, I'm gonna go check this out. I'll talk to you later.
With that said, we parted ways and I went to my office. Just like I thought, there was a green envelope on my desk. Now that I knew what was in it, there was no real hurry to open it. So, I pushed it aside and got some work done. About an hour later, I was taking a break and decided to open the envelope. Slipping the key card out and looking at it, I immediately noticed a difference. My card had me arriving at 11 p.m. It seemed a little strange, but I figured it had something to do with the flow of traffic, so I wrote it off. The address was a different story. I wanted to see where I'd be going this Friday. 3121 Potter was a recently completed high-rise office building in the center of downtown. After checking the street view and finding where I'd be parking, I saved the location and went on with my day. Friday night, 10:55 p.m. I was freshly pressed and dressed to impress as I strolled through the lobby of 3121 Potter. Every square inch of the place was immaculate. I felt like I was in a museum. When I got to the greeter's desk, I was met by security. They checked my ID, then had me sign in before directing me to the elevators. The party was being held on the 22nd floor, which was the top floor of the building. Security informed me that my access card was the only way on or off the floor, so I had to keep track of it. These guys were very serious. I didn't really understand what they meant until I was on the elevator. All of the other floors had buttons, but 22 had a card reader. As I scanned my card and the door shut, the first thing I noticed was the smell. All elevators have an odor, but this one smelt sweet, almost floral. The second thing I noticed was the music. The girl from Ipanema was playing softly in the background. Ignoring the music, I pulled out my phone and started checking my messages to pass the time. For some reason, the trip to the top floor felt like it took forever. When the elevator finally stopped and the doors opened, I was shocked. In front of me was a long hallway that was only slightly wider than the elevator. The corridor was dimly lit by LED strips that ran along the floor on both sides of the hallway. I'd be lying if I said the hallway wasn't a bit creepy, but that wasn't going to stop me from getting to the party. Mentally game planning my drink rotation for the night, I strolled down the hall till I finally reached a set of doors with another card reader. With a swipe of my card, the door unlocked, and I stepped into what I can only describe as an upscale nightclub. It took my breath away. There were people everywhere laughing and dancing to the music, while others hung out in the VIP sections. Impressed by the layout, I made my way over to the bar to get my night going. My startup was simple: 2 shots of tequila, chased by water, and finished with a beer. I just downed the second shot and was reaching for my water when Kevin, from 11, stepped up next to me at the bar.
Hey, I was wondering when you'd get here. They say the last person is supposed to arrive at midnight, and there's gonna be a big announcement.
Gulping down my water, then grabbing my beer, I took a sip and shrugged. Great. What's the announcement?
No clue. Samantha from HR says Jennings is the one making it.
Jennings? If the king comes down from his castle, it's gotta be important.
That's what I was thinking. Anyway, it's good to see you. I'll talk to you later.
With that, he grabbed his order and vanished into the crowd. The next hour or so flew by, and before I knew it, it was showtime. The DJ turned down the music, and everyone was gathered around the stage as our boss, Mr. Jennings, stepped up and greeted the crowd.
Hello, everyone. Well, folks, we've all made it through another year, and as usual, you all exceeded expectations. After the success of our clinical trials this past Thanksgiving, I'm proud to announce we've been cleared to move into production. Congratulations, team! We're going to change the world. And as a show of our appreciation, you'll all receive a healthy bonus, and next week is a paid week off. Now, I've taken up enough of your time. Enjoy the party, and I'll see you all next year.
Finished with his speech, Jennings passed the mic back to the DJ and stepped off the stage as the music came back on. Happily, he hadn't killed the vibe with a drawn-out speech. I headed to the bar for my second round. Since I'd kicked off with tequila shots, I decided to make it the theme of the night and went with a tequila sunrise. Working with a nice buzz, I sipped my drink and watched Jennings as he moved through the room, making his exit. I wasn't surprised to see him leaving, but I was a little stunned to see who he was leaving with. There were two people waiting along with his private security. Amanda Perkins from Research and Development and Dr. Ellis Hill. Huh. I'd never met either of them in person, but I'd seen them on several conference calls. Admittedly, I was mostly looking at Miss Perkins, but that didn't change the fact that it was odd seeing them. As they made their exit, I shifted my attention back to the party and almost immediately caught Pam from the 6th floor looking at me. I'll be the first to admit, Pam and I have a strange relationship. Around the office, we rarely get along, but when we're alone, things get, well, let's say messy, but in a good way. Judging by the way she was eyeing me, I figured it was going to be a good night. Smiling to myself and sipping my drink, I shifted my attention to the far right side of the party. A small group of people were gathered around the booth, but I couldn't see exactly what they were doing. Curious, I weaved my way through the crowd till I was close enough to get a good look. In hindsight, I should have known Clyde would be at the center of the shenanigans. But I went anyway, and he didn't disappoint. He was dressed in a purple zebra print priest costume, and he was passing out little baggies of purple and pink powder. The moment he saw me standing there, he waved me over.
My pal Al, I was looking for you. Here, take 2 and call me in the morning.
Smiling, he tossed me 2 of the baggies that were held together by a rubber band. Inside were both colors of the mystery powder. What the hell is this? Opening one of the pink baggies and dumping it into his drink, Clyde motioned for me to come have a seat.
It's a little something I had the boys at the lab whip up. I call it the Master Key. Try it. You're gonna love it.
What's in it?
It's all legal if that's what you're worried about. Just try it. I promise you're not gonna regret it.
Passing the baggies back to him, I shook my head. Thanks, but I'll pass. Do you see who Jennings left with?
Did I? Sweet Jesus, what I wouldn't do to spend some time behind Miss Perkins. Cheeks for weeks. I'd die a happy man after that one.
I started to agree with him, but then caught myself and got back on track. I'm talking about Dr. Hill. What was he doing here?
Oh yeah, he was here, wasn't he? I don't know, man. Shit, who cares? It's a party. Stop thinking about work. Have some fun.
Pausing for a second and pointing to a group of women dancing near the DJ's booth, he continued.
Look at that shit. Lydia's got the twins out. And you're over here eyeballing old dudes. Get your priorities straight.
Glancing over at Layla, I had to laugh at myself. Clyde was right. Everyone was having fun, while I was looking for problems. Nodding in agreement and relaxing, I hung out with him at his table till he eventually went to try his luck with Layla. Taking the opportunity to grab myself another drink, I got up and headed back to the bar. I'd made it about halfway across the party when I noticed there were mannequins dressed like Santa set up all around the room. These weren't your run-of-the-mill mannequins. They looked a little too creepily real. It was unsettling. Thinking maybe I'd been caught up in the festivities to notice the decorations, I shrugged it off and kept going, sticking with my tequila theme for the night. I got to the bar and ordered a ranch water, then headed to the balcony to have a smoke. Stepping out into the cool night air felt amazing, and the view was perfect. As I fired up a cigarette and took my first drag, a voice from behind me caught my attention.
Hey, great night for a party.
It was Pam. Exhaling the smoke, I turned around to see her standing in the doorway smiling at me.
If I didn't know better, I'd think you were avoiding me.
Taking another drag, I smirked. No, ma'am. I was saving the best for last. I was thinking we could have breakfast later.
After what exactly?
Depends on what you've got in mind. She flashed a flirtatious smile, then stepped towards me, and just as she reached out to touch me, someone inside started screaming. Startled by the noise, the two of us hurried back inside to find everyone gathered near the bar. From what I could see, there was something lying on the floor bleeding. Rather than adding to the chaos, I pulled my phone out and called for an ambulance. When I was done, Pam and I moved through the crowd, letting everyone know help was on the way. With all the commotion, it took a minute to get a good look at who was on the ground, but when I did, I was shocked. Lying in a massive pool of blood was Jim from the third floor. He had been gutted. His intestines and other internal organs were spilled on the cold tile floor. The smell of partially digested food and liquor and blood was nauseating. It was taking everything in me not to vomit. I needed to get out of there. As I turned to go back to the balcony, I spotted 3 people arguing at the bar. 2 men had Kevin hemmed up and were bombarding him with questions. Curious, I got closer so I could hear what they were saying. They were asking what happened, but he wasn't responding. He was just standing there, staring at the body with a blank expression on his face. Frustrated with the lack of answers, the taller of the 2 men shoved Kevin against the bar, but he still didn't respond. Seeing things were getting heated, the tall guy's buddy grabbed him and got him away from the argument before things went too far. When the duel was gone, I went over to Kevin, then waved my hand in front of his face and said his name. After a few seconds, he blinked a few times, then slowly shifted his eyes to me, and in a slow, shaky voice said,
I didn't do it.
Trying to stay calm, I gave him a reassuring nod and did my best to not think about the corpse on the floor behind me. That's good. What happened?
I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Okay, I believe you, but what happened?
I don't know. I was at the bar getting a beer, then...
Stopping in mid-sentence, Kevin nervously looked around the room, pointing at the Santa mannequins.
I started moving, but they weren't moving. I could see them in the mirror, only in the mirror. When I tried to really look at them, they would go back to where they were.
Glancing at one of the mannequins, I frowned. That doesn't make sense. Which one of them moved?
All of them.
I didn't know how to respond to that. I tried to be reassuring as I could, but there wasn't much I could say. I honestly didn't believe any of it. He'd probably taken some of Clyde's master key and was tripping balls. The first chance I got, I broke away from the conversation and went looking for Pam. I remembered coming in with her and when we heard the screaming, but I hadn't seen where she had gone. After searching for 15 minutes, I found her coming out of the restroom. Turns out she'd gotten sick when she saw Jim's body and had gone to the restroom. She'd been in there talking with some of the other women from the party. We immediately came to the conclusion that it was time to go and headed for the door. Apparently, we weren't the only ones to come to that conclusion. People were rushing out to the exit. Joining the flow of traffic, we flowed into the narrow hall leading to the elevators. We'd made it about halfway when someone at the front of the crowd shouted, "The doors won't open!" A wave of panic rolled through the crowd and things went from bad to worse. Trapped between the surging crowd and the chaos at the elevators, I was feeling claustrophobic. I had to get out of there. Grabbing Pam by the hand, I shouted, "Don't let go!" Then I started forcing my way back through the crowd. It didn't take long to get out of the hall. We weren't the only ones to turn back. Slowly, but surely, everyone gave up on the elevators and came back to the main room. At some point, someone covered Jim's body with a tablecloth, but that really didn't do much for the smell. I was pretty sure everyone called 911, but it had been nearly an hour and no one had showed up. Pam and I separated ourselves from the crowd. We were sitting in a small booth on the far side of the room. Shifting her attention between Jim's corpse and the rest of the partygoers, Pam frowned.
Okay, hear me out. If no one can leave, that means the person that did this is still here.
I knew what she was getting at, and she was right, but the last thing anyone should be doing is confronting a killer. Yeah, you're probably right, but Kevin said it was one of the Santas. Taking her attention off the crowd and pointing to one of the mannequins, Pan gave me a disbelieving look.
So wait, you're telling me that someone's dressed like Santa and pretending to be part of the decorations? Come on, that's crazy. They would have been standing there for hours. Besides that, I'm pretty sure someone would have noticed Santa gutting a guy in the middle of a party.
No, I'm saying Kevin told me the mannequins did it. Pam paused to look at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded her head before glancing over at Kevin.
Okay, so we're just gonna ignore the fact that that's completely insane and he's probably the one who did it?
It was my turn to go silent. I couldn't say he didn't do it. I hear you, but look at the guy. There's nothing on him. His hands are clean and there's no blood on his clothes. How do you cut somebody open without getting anything on you? Turning her attention back to Kevin, Pam shrugged and asked,
What's he doing?
Kevin was sitting at the bar by himself, staring into the mirror and smiling. We watched in disbelief as he sipped from an invisible cup, then motioned to an angry bartender for a refill. At this point, the other people around the room were starting to notice. Slowly but surely, the audience grew as he nodded at his reflection, then raised his invisible glass for a toast. Just as he brought the cup to his lips, something none of us could see slammed down on the top of his head. It hit with such force that it drove his skull between his shoulders, destroying his spine. There was a horrible, horrific, wet, crackling sound as his vertebrae from his neck and his lower back compressed, then shattered, causing his body to go limp before he slumped onto the bar. Everyone in the room had sort of a delayed reaction. There was a moment of wide-eyed surprise, followed by screams. Then a wave of horrified chatter filled the room. Somehow, in all of the chaos, my attention never left Kevin. For some reason, I couldn't get the image of him smiling out of my head. A part of me wished I could have seen what he was looking at in the mirror from where Pam and I were sitting. All I could see was him. That thought made me want to know who had the best view. It didn't take long to figure out. In the section directly behind Kevin, there was a group of people. Two of them were still staring at the mirror. It was the same two that were asking him questions. They'd probably been watching him, so they would have seen it all. I was about to mention it to Pam, but she tapped my hand before I got a chance. She wanted to go back to the patio and get some fresh air. I told her I'd meet her out there, then watched as she crossed the room. Once she was outside, I got up and made my way over to the two men I'd noticed. The shortest of the duo was Jeff. I couldn't remember what he did, but I'd met him once before. When I was close enough to get his attention, I called his name and asked him what happened. Snapping out of his daze, Jeff looked at me for a second before pointing at the mirror and finally saying something.
I don't know. I saw it, but it wasn't here. It was there, but what happened there happened here, even though it wasn't here.
Confused and a little irritated, I kept my cool and tried a few more times before giving up. From what I was able to piece together, one of the mannequins dragged a big mallet across the room and hit Kevin on the head with it. If I understood him correctly, he could only see what was happening in the mirror. In a way, it made sense. Kevin had said the same thing. Completely stumped by the situation, I made my way back to Pam, but she wasn't there. After a quick scan of the room, I spotted her out on the balcony. She was talking to Clyde, who looked like he was having a hard time. Thinking some fresh air might help to clear my head and my mind, I got back up and went to join them. Seeing me coming towards them, Pam excused herself and met me halfway.
Okay, so Clyde says when he saw the elevator wasn't working, he went to go look for stairs, but there weren't any. How is that possible? I thought all buildings had to have stairs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to. The real question is, why aren't the police here? It's been over an hour. They should have been here by now. Thinking about it for a second, Pam nodded, then went to the edge of the balcony, so I followed. Looking down at the street in front of the building, she frowned, then pulled her phone out of the little handbag she was carrying. After dialing 911 again, she looked at me and shook her head.
They're not answering, and there's no cops in the front of the building. I don't think they're coming.
Even though I'd just seen her make the call, I pulled my phone out and was about to try myself when Clyde shouted,
Don't do it! Don't do it!
Pam and I turned to see a woman wearing a black dress standing on the handrail. Before anyone could stop her, she stepped off and dropped 22 floors to the pavement below. There was an intense moment of silence as we all watched her body tumbling through the air. Most of the crowd looked away before she hit the ground, but I couldn't. From that height, I couldn't see any real details, but what I did see was horrific. Her body essentially burst on impact, splattering guts across the sidewalk. As insensitive as it sounds, seeing that gave me an idea. We should throw the mannequins off the balcony.
What? Why would we do that?
Kevin said it was the mannequins that killed Jim, and Jeff said they were who killed Kevin. I'm pretty sure if anyone could have asked that lady, she would have said the same thing. so we get rid of them. And this should be over, right?
I don't know. It sounds crazy. I haven't seen the mannequins do anything. It might not make a difference.
If it won't make a difference, then there's no harm in trying. At the very least, we might draw some attention to the building, right? Pam couldn't think of an argument against my plan, so she agreed to help. Then we enlisted Clyde to speed things up. While everyone else was freaking out, each of us grabbed a mannequin, then dragged it out to the balcony. As Clyde helped me lift the first one on top of the handrail, he scoffed.
When the police show up, remember, this was your idea.
Smiling a little and shaking my head, I shrugged. Then we shoved it over and watched it fall. When it hit the ground, we turned to get the next one in line. Just as we grabbed it, a chorus of screams came from inside the building. We didn't have to go inside to see what was happening. Jeff was suspended about 6 feet off the ground, screaming his head off. In the chaos of the moment, I happened to glance over at the mirror, and my jaw dropped. I could see 4 of the mannequins holding him up by his arms and legs. Almost as soon as I spotted them, they started pulling him apart. His limbs crackled, then snapped as they separated them from his body, spraying the closest to him with blood. It was pandemonium. The crowd surged, split as everyone scrambled in different directions. As part of the crowd spilled out into the balcony, I motioned for Clyde to help me get the next mannequin, but he wasn't paying attention. I tried calling his name a couple of times, then reached out to grab his shoulder. Before I could get a hand on him, he took off. Confused, I watched him fight his way back inside, then glanced over at Pam. She'd been in the process of bringing over the third dummy. When the crowd came out, now she was surrounded, and I didn't see it. Abandoning my plan, I made my way to her. Then we moved to the furthest corner from the crowd. Neither of us said a word. The shock of it all had finally set in, and now all we could do was watch. It took a second to spot Clyde. When I caught sight of him, he was near a small section of tables to the right of the bar. I didn't realize what he was doing until I saw him hug Linda and take her by the hand and turn to come back. Just as they passed the bar, I saw the mirror and went wide-eyed. The mannequins were coming. I shouted as loud as I could to warn them, but it was too late. The first one slammed into Clyde like a linebacker and sent him flying. As he hit the ground, another mannequin drove him and immediately started tearing into him. While that was happening, Linda staggered around in a horrified daze, not knowing what to do. Staring at Clyde being eviscerated by something she couldn't see. She backpedaled away from him. She'd taken 1, maybe 2 steps when they came for her. They danced in circles around her, toying with her, waiting for just the right moment. Then it happened. Linda caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror and she froze. The moment her feet stopped moving, they attacked. One of them rushed her from behind and grabbed her, so another one could finish her off. It drove both of its hands into her stomach, tearing through flesh before grabbing a fistful of intestines and ripping them out. The part of the crowd that couldn't fit on the balcony and hadn't made it into the hall was trapped in the VIP section. There were 7 of them, 4 women, 3 men, and all of them were panicking. Since the exit was closer than the balcony, 3 of them rushed the door and started trying to push it open. The people in the hallway wouldn't let them out. Every time the door budged, it immediately slammed shut. After a few seconds, one of the others ran over to help, but it wasn't doing much good. I watched them for a moment, then turned to look at Pam. She pulled back a little and was on her phone. I didn't have anything to say. I just watched her for a second, then glanced around at the crowd. Everyone was dealing with the situation in their own way. Some were crying. Others were catatonic. And of course, there was someone trying to take charge, ignoring all of it and looking out at the city. I tried to clear my mind. I had to get the how and why out of my head. The only thing that mattered was staying alive. So far, staying away from the mirror seemed to be working. So my vote was to stay put till help arrived. Sooner or later, the sun would come up and the city would get busy. That body on the sidewalk would attract a lot of attention. One way or another, the cops were going to have to come out. After that, all we had to do was to get them to look up. Before I had a chance to share my thoughts with Pam, a commotion broke out near the sliding doors. When the people trapped inside couldn't get into the hall, they decided to try the balcony, but they never made it to the door. From what I could tell, they didn't get past the bar. All 4 of them had been reduced to piles of broken bones and mangled flesh. The remaining 3 in the VIP section were absolutely losing it, but they didn't have to wait long. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out for a few seconds before coming back on, and when they did, all 3 were gone. It wasn't like the others. Their bodies were still splattered across the room. The final 3 were just gone. In a way, that was worse than seeing them get ripped apart. I couldn't imagine what they'd gone through. Lost in my own thoughts, I zoned out till I felt someone tap my shoulder. Snapping out of my daze, I turned to see a stout, bald guy holding an unlit cigarette. Flashing a slight smirk, he asked for a light, so I handed him one, then watched as he lit up. Handing my lighter back, he paused before releasing his grip on it and said, "You're gonna die." Then let go and walked away. Stunned by his words, I stood there speechless, till an argument near the doors got heated. Despite everything they'd seen, a small group wanted to try getting to the elevators. The people by the doors were trying to convince them not to go, but it was pointless. They wanted out, and honestly, I couldn't blame them. Reluctantly, the guys who'd been guarding the door stepped aside and let the group go. On the count of 3, they rushed the door and forced it open, but no one was ready for what was on the other side. From the floor to the ceiling, the hall was coated in blood. Disfigured corpses and slabs of shredded flesh blanketed the hallway, all the way to the elevator. No one said a word. Collectively, we stood staring into what I imagined hell must look like. There were bits of skin mixed with clumps of hair sticking to the walls and dripping from the ceiling. The LED lights that lined the walkway were submerged in blood, giving everything a red glow that was highlighted by the light above the elevator. Our unified silence was broken by the chimes of the elevator sounding before the doors slid open. The thought of escaping this nightmare swept through the crowd as we watched the first group make a run for it. Doing their best not to look down, they high-stepped and trudged through the sludge, but they made it. Once they were all in the elevator, one of them scanned their card, and away they went. The next few seconds were nerve-wracking as we waited for the elevator to come back. When the chimes sounded again and the doors opened for the second time, it was empty. The moment was all it took to get everyone moving. In the blink of an eye, I was swept up in the rush as everyone ran for the elevator. We just pushed past the bar when the guy next to me gasped and then clutched his chest and dropped. As I glanced over at him, I caught sight of Pam. We were separated by a couple of people, so I tried to get to her. Pushing and shoving my way through, I got within reach, then froze. Her back was to the bar, so I couldn't see them, but I could. The mannequins were running into the crowd. One of them lowered its head and straight up ran through a woman. When it hit her, she basically vaporized, spraying everyone around her in pink mist. Seeing that snapped me back into action. I grabbed Pam by the arm and turned to run. Weaving through the chaos, we maneuvered closer to the exit and were almost to the door when something slammed into me. I felt the impact of something heavy collide with my right shoulder, sending me flying. I came down hard, then slid a few feet before something or someone, or I don't know. Someone, I guess, tripped over me. Slightly disoriented. I rolled to my back and sat up. The person that tripped over me was Ned from accounting. He was maybe 5 feet away from me and in the process of getting up. Just as he got to his feet, he stopped and stood there blinking. After a second, his eyes rolled back and blood poured from his nose. His body split down the middle, spilling guts everywhere. Scooting away as fast as I could, then scrambling to my feet, I made a break to the exit, trying not to focus on the people dying around me. I hurried to the hallway, immediately spotting Pam with 4 other people trudging through the corpses. Between the sounds coming from the room behind me and the feeling of stepping on bodies, I was having a hard time, but I caught up to them. Somewhere between getting to the hall and joining the group, the screaming stopped. Then sudden silence left us with nothing but the squishing of our footsteps and the music coming from the elevator. A slurry of bloody sludge and body parts was keeping the doors from closing, giving us a soundtrack to march to. It didn't take long for the 5 of us to pile into the elevator, move the mess out of the way, and scan one of our cards. As the door closed on the nightmare, the 5 of us silently stood there in shock. All of us were covered in blood and smelled like death warmed over. But we were alive, and that was all that mattered. As the floors passed and the music played, I looked at Pam, then at the others. I don't know why, but the only thing I could think to say was, I quit. Fuck this job. There was a long moment of silence, then then everyone started laughing. Just as the tension eased up, we reached the ground floor and the doors opened. The laughter came to a screeching halt. Armed men wearing black tactical gear, armed with heavy rifles, and they were aimed at us, then marched us off the elevator. We were taken to what looked like a cafeteria near the rear of the building where Jennings, Dr. Hill, and Miss Perkins were waiting. All of us argued and asked questions but received no answers, as Hill took blood from each of us. When he was done collecting samples, he and Perkins left, but Jennings and his security stayed with us, looking all of us over and shaking his head. Jennings smirked.
Exceptional. What a waste. All right, fellas. Bag 'em and tag 'em. We've got to get this place scrubbed down.
With that said, he walked away as his guards clicked off the safeties on their weapons, took aim, and fired. Everything happened so fast I barely heard the shots. I felt the first bullet rip through my gut before a second round punched through my collarbone, and everything went black. I woke up under a blue plastic tarp, and I was covered in lye. I found out later I was in the basement of an abandoned building that had been boarded up and marked for demolition. I don't know how I survived, but I managed to crawl out of there and was found by some homeless people. Thanks to them, I didn't die, but I spent the next couple of weeks in the hospital. I told the police everything. Unfortunately, no bodies were ever found, and somehow the company I work for mysteriously vanished. There was no record of a Volotech ever existing, and that building we were in was vacant. The only thing I know for sure is that the doctors found traces of an unknown compound in my respiratory system. They believed I'd been drugged at some point, but since I couldn't pinpoint anything, it was a dead end. I don't know what's going to happen to me once they find out I'm alive, but I don't plan on sticking around to find out. Before I go, I have to say this. Stay away from any new pharmaceuticals hitting the market over the next year or so. Good luck out there. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Well, that certainly took a turn. I love a good party as much as the next guy, but after that, I'll be doing my partying at home, without mannequins.
Hey, we heard there's a party. Our invite must have gotten lost in the mail, though, right along with our mail-in ballots. I wish they'd lose my junk mail that easily.
Oh no, crap!
Hey, Steve? We're still out here, you know, and we aren't going anywhere until we party like it's 1899.
That's 1999.
1899, 1999, what's the difference?
About 100 years.
Oh, ha ha. Steve, are you gonna open the door or what?
Well, that was just plain rude. Ooh, a bar! Wow, what a great party. It reminds me of some of Sinatra's parties. Wine, women, murder, and Bing Crosby with a fresh bag of oranges. That's right up your alley, other half.
Yeah. But where did they dig up Bing Crosby? Anywho, how about we spice up this party? Hey, boring half, hand me my bag.
Well, here you go. Oh, man, what's in here anyway?
Say hello to my little friend.
Oh, yeah! Let's get this party started. Hey, Lisa? Oh, sorry. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Archibald Carlisle, entertainer and the world's first voiceover ventriloquist figure. And that's the other half.
The other half of what?
Well, the other half of producer Jesse Cornett. His job at another podcast caused a slight split in his personality. Having to voice all those characters and produce those mind-bending tomes of terror.
They kind of had to institutionalize me for a bit for that. But I'm feeling much better now. By the way, they gave me these little blue pills to help suppress the dark half over there. If he becomes too much for you, you can always try one if you like. They're blue raspberry flavored.
No thanks. My mom told me never to accept candy from strangers with creepy little puppets.
That's creepy little vent figure, thank you.
Wait, if there's a blue pill to suppress him, did we all take the red pill or something?
Honey, I am the red pill.
Anywho, I do hope everybody enjoyed tonight's Twisted Tale, The Last Bash, here at Dark and Disturbed Tales.
Oy vey. And I thought this new season was going to be quiet and calm here at Dark and Disturbed Tales.
Nope, not with us around, Steve. Remember, it was the Nightwacher that wanted us all together and asked us to join the show. By the way, Happy New Year, everybody!
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year, everyone. Archie's right. Getting back together with Steve, being here with the horror story audience, it's like one big happy family again. Right, other half?
Oh, sure, yeah. One big, happy, demented family. Now, where do you keep your interns, Steve?
I'm Steve Taylor, wishing all of you a happy and safe new year. Until next time, may the darkness embrace you.